Right, so over the last 5 years, I've successfully acquired hundreds of clients for my agency with different outreach methods. In this video, I'm going to teach you a framework as well as some first principles so you can objectively have a look at what you're doing in your own outreach so that you can stop wasting time and start booking more meetings, so that you can sign more clients, you can make more money, and honestly, you can just have more fun doing outreach. Because when was the last time you were actually excited to go and do outreach? Because most of the people I know are doing it all wrong and they end up burning themselves out and hating the process throughout the entire journey. So when it comes to outreach, there is no secret sauce or best method for every single niche and every single situation. And that's what ends up tripping up most people in the space. I solve this exact outreach problem every single day for different agencies in my mastermind, and of course for my own agency as well. And I do this by looking at exactly what you're doing, applying these reasons I'm about to give you, and then breaking down and separating value from waste, and then just making decisions based off data. The three most common mistakes I see people doing every single time, and I mean it every single time, it's always the same thing, is people either wrongly mistake what the bottleneck is. They either don't track the right thing or they just don't do any tracking. And they also always seem to try and scale too quickly, too soon, without validation. So now that you know what the problems are, let me actually go ahead and give you some solutions. But before we do that, if you do enjoy it and you do get value out of this, I've got nothing to sell. All I ask is that you go ahead and subscribe. It really, really does help the channel. Okay, so let's start with most people who wrongly identify what their bottleneck is. And before you can clearly identify bottlenecks in your outreach, you need to understand that there's three essential ingredients before you can look at what you're doing objectively and figure out where the problem is. And most people don't even have the ingredients in the first place. And those ingredients are quite simply volume, consistency, and then constant tweaking throughout their process. So let's talk about volume first. On the volume side of things, you should be doing at a bare minimum, and this is like bare minimum, so if you can do more, fantastic, but bare minimum, just so you have a goalpost, you need to be doing 60 outbound attempts per day. And I say 60 because it doesn't matter on what platform, Facebook, Instagram, it doesn't matter. Different niches, different services. I've made videos about that in the past. But the key thing is you need at a minimum 60 new conversations or new attempts to start conversations every single day. Because if you're not doing that and you're not meeting that minimum criteria, then you're not actually collecting enough data to be able to look at what's happening and make some decisions. The second ingredient in the process is consistency. And think about it, when was the last time you bought something that was, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on the spot without much thought from someone who you don't know who just reached out to you for the first time? There basically is a process that people go through when making that decision, and usually it doesn't happen once. That means you should be making, and this is the number that I've got from the data across all the agencies I've helped and my own, you need to be doing at least 5 to 8 follow-ups with each prospect consistently before you give up on them booking a call or becoming a client. The third ingredient is you need to be running A/B tests at all times through your outreach. That means no matter what medium you choose, you should always have 2 variations of the messaging that you're sending out. And what's important is that each message is completely different from each other. Too many times I see people doing A/B tests, but the messages are so similar, it's too difficult to separate them. So start thinking, how can you create 2 completely separate messaging angles that make sense and then test them up against each other? So as an example, let's think very short emails versus very, very long emails instead of just like, let's change the subject line or a little word here and there. That doesn't make that much of a difference. Once you've done these tests, another thing I see people not doing is progressively moving forward with their test results. So if you determined, let's say as an example, that short emails are way better than long emails for getting responses, conversations, and calls, why on earth would you ever send a long email ever again? Because you already determined something. So you need to use data to progressively iterate and get better and better and better at it than just running around in circles testing the same thing. And the easiest way to do this is to actually set up your A/B tests correctly. And you really need a couple things. You need a hypothesis, then you need a goal data point, let's say 100 emails or 100 messages or something like this, before you can make a decision. And then you need outcomes. If X happens, then I'm gonna do this. If Y happens, then I'm gonna do this. Have everything clearly defined before you start so that when you actually have an experiment running, all you're doing is waiting to hit that goal, and then you have clear outcomes, you're gonna analyze, and you're gonna move forward from there. Right, once you've got all those ingredients in place, now you can actually start identifying what is the bottleneck? Why am I not booking calls? And obviously you need to be tracking things in order to do that. So now let's look at some key metrics that you have to be tracking, because 9 out of 10 times, the number one metric everyone tracks is, well, how many calls did I book? And that makes sense because obviously that's our goal here, and that is an important metric. But what it does is it completely skips all the things that have to happen and act as prerequisites before you book a call, such as, I don't know, having a conversation with someone, building a little bit of trust, getting to know them, their problem, their situation, before you just go in there guns blazing, hey, please book a call with me and buy my things, buy my things. Okay, so now let's look at the KPIs that actually make up that process and all the ones that I suggest you track instead of just how many calls have I booked. The first one is active responses, right? How many people actually respond to your first email, first message, first cold call, first whatever. The second thing is how many active conversations do I have in total? And the third thing is, of those conversations, how many people have I made offers to? And the offer shouldn't be your offer. It should be, let's jump on a call. And then the last one is how many triage calls have been booked, right? Which basically is a strategy call. The reason I suggest you track those metrics is because another mistake I see people make when it comes to tracking is not understanding the purpose of each step in their outreach. For example, the first email, SMS, whatever you send, it shouldn't be designed with the goal of booking calls. How many times have you seen or sent an email that says, hey, my name is this, I saw your website, I realize you're not doing this and this and this, my agency can help, please book a call with me and I'll take your money, right? But that's what most people are doing. Your first email, first outbound attempt, the only goal you should have with it is to start a conversation. You just want the person to reply. Because as soon as you have a conversation, you have an opportunity to provide good information, build value, create some goodwill, which ultimately then, if you do your job right, will lead to the opportunity where you can present them to booking a call with you. Right, now that we've got those two things out of the way, let's look at the next thing that I see people doing far too often, which is scaling based on a shaky foundation that they haven't even validated in the first time. So there's really just like two key points that I want to make with this one. The first is, no matter if you're in my mastermind or someone else's or 100 different masterminds, try as much as possible to avoid using scripts and run away from people who are selling you the magic script, the magic email template or sequence or whatever to try and book calls for a couple of reasons. One, if you have it, other people also have it, which means it's probably been used over and over and burnt in the marketplace. And secondly, also, each script is crafted from a different position and a different view of the niche and service that they're running away from. So it's super, super important that you create your own secret sauce, because if you try and leverage someone else's directly, it usually never ends well. And that's why I teach structures instead of exact scripts. The second thing is you really need to, and if you get anything out of this entire video, this is the one thing I want you to take home. Do everything that doesn't scale first. And what this means is I need you to manually type out every single email, every single SMS, every single outbound attempt that you do. I need you to record every loom manually. I need you to record everything manually that you send before you go ahead and use an automation software like Lemlist or one of these other tools, or you hire VAs to send it and just do 10 times the volume as what you would do. Because here's the thing that people don't understand. Automation, whether it's through a software or through a VA, it basically acts as a multiplier. So if you have something good, it can 10 times make it better. But if you have something bad, it can 10 times make it worse, because if it's bad and you don't get responses, calls, whatever, it's just going to end up breaking your structure, right? It's either going to burn your profile, burn your domain reputation, or just burn your reputation in the space in general. So what you need to do is write every single initial outbound attempt yourself, manually, personalize it 100%. Don't use a script or structure. And I know what you're saying. You're probably thinking, Courtney, that means I'm going to be doing this for like 8 hours a day and I'm not going to be able to actually do much because it takes time to do this. And I agree. By doing everything manually, your volume will come down, but your quality will go up. And with quality going up, you will get calls booked in. And then what I want you to do is wait until you have around 10 calls booked in your calendar from the outreach that you're doing. Then go and look back, because at that point, you probably would have created hundreds, if not thousands of completely different messages, different scripts, different structures, and go and look which of the ones generated those meetings. And what you'll find is there should be a pattern that resonates throughout that data. Now that you have a pattern, now what you want to do is create a new script, new outbound, new structure based on the pattern of success you developed yourself that's unique to you, your voice, your language, your brand, your niche, your offer, your service, and then use that now golden little script and structure and leverage that with automation. So email softwares, VAs, cold calling, sales teams, appointment setters, whatever you want to do, but don't jump ahead and try and scale something if you don't even know if it works. And another thing, because you've created this completely new golden little script or structure based on data, no one else in the market, including even me, will have it. And that's a massive, massive competitive advantage. Right, so now if you did enjoy this video, then I definitely recommend that you go check out this quick video that I made, which basically breaks down how I would start again from scratch if I was trying to get my first client with a new agency, a new offer, a new everything. Go ahead, click it right here, and I'll see you in that video.